Hello, folks. I've just been pondering politics. How does it work, and why is it that both left and right are only two sides of the same coin? I've been watching quite a few videos this week, and I can see that people, even people that are academic, experts in the field, they seem to still accept the left-right paradigm as real, like a real battle. And in some senses that is correct, but this is the way I explain it. So we have to consider that there's one page, just one piece of paper, an A4, let's say. And let's just, for instance, say there's 22 rules or protocols that you need to implement if you are going to create a successful nation. Okay, so 22 rules. Now, what the Crown has done, and we're talking about the unincorporated Crown that's running all the incorporated Crown, so that's the Crown Temple at the top with its own judicial system. It has basically torn that piece of paper in half. So now you have what was one piece of paper, the protocols of running a nation, has now been cut in half. On each of those now two pieces of paper is 11 protocols. One half of that paper is given to the left, and the other half is given to the right, so-called. So that would be Democrat Republic in America, it would be Conservative Labour in the British Isles. Now, that, in and of itself, because of the importance of each divided now side, the importance of those protocols can be recognised by everybody. That then gives the left respectability and acceptability, because you can genuinely see that the protocols that it holds are required. So, keeping your communications nationalised, keeping your rails nationalised, your militaries, your energy, your industry, your farming. Now, not so much farming, but what I'm saying is there has to be protections on that. So the way the 11 protocols that Labour holds are in the main about how certain things you have to have run by the national state that's subservient to the population, which means they're subservient to the English Constitution. Okay, so that's the format that we're looking at. So the left have got 11 protocols that are recognised as essential. The right has also 11 protocols recognised as essential to the running of a country. So what you've got then is the Crown operating both of these sides to divide up the population. So for the working class, the protocols held by Labour would be far more important to their day-to-day. On the right, you've got a healthy military. That's always been a protocol. A good sense of national pride. And England should be proud because it is the giver of civilization to so much of the West and the world even. Let's now consider that what it is that's attacking England today is the British Empire. Okay, now the protocols from way back, the protocols of learned as elders of Zion. Now people have bloody, there's a lot of poo things going on, but basically when you get down to the nitty gritty, those protocols were ruled a forgery in a court, and a forgery is a copy of an original. Yet the failure to understand that, people just think, oh, they're not real. That's because they haven't understood the language used in describing our court ruled these protocols. So that it was a forgery, so they were real. Now, in the protocols, it's clear that England is the last nation to be dismantled. And that is because of the Constitution. So they've had to subvert that in the minds of the population of England. And they've been doing that from the First World War, boom, 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 boom. You know, each time they mess everything up, they'll create the new system they want. Then you'll get the war. After the war, that system they created before that nobody liked is just implemented as though it had always been. Both camps now have given the Crown the ability to manipulate the division that's then held in the nation. So the working class, the people that work, tend to move to the left because those are the protocols that are more relevant. On the right, this is your wealthier class, the people that need to keep some kind of nationality in the nation because they need to keep the produce they produce secure. So that's how it's being worked. That division has been played. Now we can see today that they're working together. It's always been so because they tore the 22 protocols in half and gave each of them half. So forever in Parliament, while this has been operating, they're arguing, both sides are actually tearing apart one half of that piece of paper as though it's trash, when it's not. None of them are trash. None of them. They're all equally valid and essential to running a nation. And that's been going on for so long that people have lost sight of that fact. Now, okay, so that makes you think, oh, let's go communist, let's have a... No, nonsense, that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is the Constitution itself holds that piece of paper in full because the state is then operating according to the laws of the realm. Yeah, that's how constitutions work. The English Constitution is written. You know, the British Constitution isn't written, but everybody believes the British. We haven't recognised that the British Empire is its own entity. It exists in a square mile in London. It exists in Washington, D.C. It exists in Shanghai. It exists in India. It exists everywhere. The British Empire. Not what we're talking, the trading blocks that were set up and companies set up under James and Elizabeth. We're talking about what it became when the Prussians took over this nation as the Hanoverians. That's what we're talking about, because this is when what had been created by Elizabeth for the nation became the plaything of this corporate crown, the incorporated grouping of corporations that's operated by the unincorporated temple crown, the Templars. So in order for that to happen, they've subdued the Knights Hospitallers. They've subdued the entire English chivalric knighthood, and that's been gone over centuries because they've imported their own bloodlines in here to take up those positions, and they've then together in unison handed all that was England into this private corporate fascist system. The left and right paradigm, that is the problem. Because, you know, most people out there today, you are in awe of one particular side and you're still on this battleground that the other one's pulling that apart. When in fact, you put the two pieces of paper together, you've got the full 22 protocols that runs a nation. And you'll find that they're also within the English realm. Magna Carta for the rights for the man. You know, the Bill of Rights, the Coronation Oath, which fixes the office of monarch completely to upholding the common law. And the Church of England as a Christian organisation, not as a Zionist organisation, that operates to its own rules, thinks it's be above that which it presents on everybody else. That's not because it's a Christian church, and it's not been a Christian church for a very long time. It's a Zionist church. It's what it is. The Jesuits have done the same to the Vatican. The Vatican is now 100% Jesuit. That doctrine, which is the same doctrine as the Muslim Brotherhood. So all these forces together, the Freemasons, the Muslim Brotherhood and its various secret societies, the Jesuits, all the Knights Orders that have been subdued via the Jesuits through the control of the Vatican now, that is the British Empire. That block, the secret society power, is the British Empire. The monarch system that we see, Buckingham Palace, all the regalia, that's the English monarch, the English realm. You know, one has subverted the other and then used the other to front the one in the shadows. That's how it's done. And the diversion with the politics in relation to ripping up that piece of paper has been the exact method in achieving the left-right paradigm and thus the division of all nations in which this system is in place. Same in America, same in Canada. Across the board, they've divided the 222 protocols and made one lot here and called it socialist and the other lot called it capitalist. The two are required. In order for capitalism to thrive, you need to make sure you control all your energy. You control, because that's self-sufficiency, that's the fence. You need to control your own military, again, that's the fence for the nation. Military of defence is very clear. DE, in front of any word, means no. So the Ministry of No Fence. You've got to take it in these terms. This is what they've been doing. So what we need to understand is that each political party has within it the correct format in order to move this together, which is why we're now seeing them come together in unison in essence. I know you still got your old hardcore anger-oners that are not going to see this, but if you're actually looking now, you can see Corbyn's brother set off the 10 grand. Acro has been enforcing that, which is a load of garbage and isn't even signed into the Data Protection Act with the Information Commissioner's Office. It hasn't got a right to take your details. It hasn't got a right to be getting your details off anybody, to be sending you letters for fines. Do you understand what I've just said to you there? It's very important. So the corporations are now running everything, and they've now co-opted both sides of our political class. That's what's happening. The British Empire is running away with England, with Scotland, with Wales, with Northern Ireland, with Southern Ireland through its control of the European Union. All the nations in Europe tied to the European Union. Again, all incorporated into this web. The United States, the federal United States of America, again, part of this web. Canada is basically almost owned by the sitting monarch, Elizabeth Alexander Mary Windsor. As an individual, Australia, another, New Zealand, another. This is what's been going on. The British Empire isn't the English Empire. There's never been an English Empire. You've got to think in these terms. We need to snap out of this identification with the British Empire, because that's got nothing to do with us. And now we can see, coming back to us, what it does, what it represents, and what it's been doing across the world since the House of Hanover, which the Prussian bloodlines, took over the highest office in and on this land. They did the same in Russia, took over the Crimea, took over big chunks of Saxony, all parts of Europe. There was a huge play going on by these Prussian bloodlines in the 1700s. Huge. It's missed because everything's seen as separate. No, the thing in common for all this movement that was going on in the 1700s was Prussian. The Prussian bloodlines. Now then, they're not Christian. Okay, they're not. So I'd like to know more about the history of the breakup of that area back in the day, but it's difficult to come across. If anybody knows any books that might offer insight into that matter, would be very much appreciated if somebody could pass on any titles for that. But this is what we need to be looking at, folks. It's the 1700s, serious, huge, a bit like what they've done, you could say, in the 20th century on into this century with the wars. A huge outpouring of war everywhere and shifting of control. As we've seen in the last 100 years, the world saw in the 1700s. And of course, that was after the Great Reset of 1666. We are now at the next reset. They're using COVID. You know, back then they changed all the titles to Lost at Sea. That's where they initiated the claim on our titles by creating an idea of a secondary one. So it's a similar kind of thing that's going on today now, and it's through the incorporation of our systems and the contracts that these corporate governments have signed with such as the European Union, you know, the Lisbon Treaty, which is now overshadowing our own constitution because nobody's using it. You know, it's still there, still operational. The policy of government cannot overturn law. It can't overturn any common law at all. It's a fantasy that people actually believe that the government has power. The government has no power. It's contracted to the United Nations. It's contracted to the Lisbon Treaty. That's what's been pouring in since the 70s into this country. Previous to that, they were everything moving out, all the industry. So everything went out and then everything moved in. And now they've co-opted our military, who believe that the British Army. This is how potent this deception is in relation to English people believing that the British, when in fact we are English. Scottish are Scottish. But we are nations together. That's how it's been for a long time. But you've got to get into the contracts, the treaties, because that's where this corporate system that's divided up the 22 protocols to run a nation successfully, that is where it's at. So I just thought I'd make this short one because it might help people to recognise what it is a bit more. So, because a lot of people, they're talking away and you can tell that they're experts in the field, but there's still that left-right misunderstanding in play. And it does change things considerably for yourself when you're coming across this stuff and studying it, when you've accepted and understood the format that I've just tried, hopefully, to get across to you in this short video. So with that, I will say, till the next time.